Howdy folks, hope you're doing well. We're going to talk about project one here and my solution to it. Again, it's not the only way to solve it. There's tons of different ways to write programs to solve different problems. So this is just one approach, and hopefully watching this, you might pick up something that you might missed or a different way of approaching it. But as long as you hit these rubric objectives, you'll get the points. It doesn't have to look the same way as mine, so don't worry about that. So as long as you're asking them for their name, using all the prompts, you get the 2 points. You ask for all those kitten details: how many, how old, their average weight. It's 2 points there. And then correctly calculating for 1 to 4 weeks old, 5 to 8 weeks old, and 8 plus, or I guess it should have been 9 plus, sorry. 9 or older here was your 10 points for the project. So I'm going to go over to IntelliJ, and I'm going to start up a new project. Again, all of mine are going in this repository here just so you don't have multiple links. So yours would have gone into your project 1 repository. Let's call this one project 1 here. And this little add sample code checkbox is awesome. So it'll give us a starter file here. It's not in a package, so I feel a little bad. It's better practice to have a package. So I'm going to add one here called project 1. You're not going to get any points or lose any points for having or not having it, but it's just a good habit to be into to use a package here. And again, a package is nothing more than a folder for Java code. All right, let's bring this down a little bit here and see if we can't make this look a little prettier. Okay. So we got our hello world, and we need to start doing a couple things. So we're going to ask them for their name. So we'll ask the user, please enter your name. And then if we're going to be using keyboard input, we need that scanner object. So we're going to say scanner keyboard. Again, I like to call it keyboard. You don't have to. You can call it anything you want, really. Equals a new scanner, and you give it system.in. And this will make a whole lot more sense later. Don't worry too much about it. But no, we need to add these imports here. So the suggestion, Alt-Enter, will add the line import java.util.scanner. This tells Java, hey, please go ahead and give me that Java library, this class out of the Java library. You don't get them all by default because there's so many of them here. Then I need a place to store their names. So we'll say here's a string for name, will be keyboard.nextLine. Now, next line, again, is probably your best bet all the time. There's a couple other times you might want to use some different options here for scanner, but next line is great, especially if they put a space in it. I've seen some people use next or next int, next double. I don't recommend those at all. So next line is probably your best bet. This way you can enter like your full name if you wanted to put in Eric Chernesky. You'd catch all of that. If you just did next, you only get Eric. And then again, the numeric ones are just a hassle as well because they leave that enter key around. All right, so we'll ask for that, and then we'll go and get the kitten details. Right, so we'll ask them for how many kittens they have, how old the kittens are, and the average weight. So we need a place to store those results. So we're probably, the number of kittens is probably an integer. So this will be number of kittens. And actually, before I do that, we should prompt them. So we'll say, please. And we need to use their name in the prompt too. So, right, this not just asking for their name, but using it in the prompts as well. So we'll say, okay, hey, name plus I don't know, how many kittens do you have? You have here, and then that will probably be an integer result here. So I want to take their input here. So again, keyboard.nextLine, but that's not an integer. Right? This lights up and says, oh, require type int provided string. So we need to convert here. So we need to say, hey, I want an integer.parseInt. Hey, integer, try and turn this thing you just read into an integer, please. And that'll be my number of kittens. And then we'll ask for how old they are. So name plus how old are the kittens? Kittens, or maybe how many weeks? How many weeks old are the kittens? Right? Well, that's how many weeks old they are, sure. And then, well, that's, again, probably an integer. Most people won't tell you 3.5. Maybe some people will, but I think integer here is probably safe as well. So this will be age in weeks. Will be, again, integer.parseInt here. So I'm just going to copy and paste that here. Now, age is okay as a variable name, but age in weeks is better because it's telling you what that type is here, what that unit of measure is. You always want to be explicit here because it's really easy to get mixed up on, well, is age years? Is it months? Is it weeks? Is it days? So be explicit with a variable name so it's easy for us to read later. All right, and the last thing we need to ask is name. What is their average weight in grams? Now, weight in grams, again, if you're just doing grams, is probably an integer, but because we're going to use that in some of these calculations here, right? Some number of formula for every 100 grams, yada, yada, yada. I want to make sure that if I have an integer, I don't end up with integer division. which is okay. We can work on that as well. So if we do it as an int, that's okay. So this will be weight in, or average weight in grams. Will be in, again, just copy this whole line. If it's an integer, it's okay. Some people made this a double, and that will work as well here. Just our arithmetic will be slightly different here because I'm not going to use doubles for these variables. Nothing wrong with using doubles. But ints I think are fine because I don't expect people to give me like half a gram here. When we're talking about grams, we're probably okay. If you wanted like weight in kilograms, yeah, probably that would be a decimal for sure, right? Because kittens are not going to be a whole number of kilograms. All right, but now we have that. Now we need to start doing some arithmetic depending on how old they are. So we have 3 different categories. So we have 1 to 4 weeks, which is essentially 4 or less weeks here, because you're never going to have a negative aged kitten here. And when a kitten's just born, I guess you might not say it's 1 week old. I didn't really include 0 here, but I'm kind of assuming that would be like, you're not going to say they're 0 weeks old. Because if I'm asking how old they are in weeks, you're probably just going to say 1. I don't know. So that was a bit of an assumption there, but that'll be okay. So for that first step then, right, if then they are 4 or less weeks old, this formula applies. Okay, so we can say if. So if the age in weeks is less than or equal to 4, set of curly braces, this block of code here will run. And what do? We tell them how much they need. So you will need to buy, and really we should probably calculate that out first here. So this will be the formula needed per day, maybe? This might, oh, I'm sorry, this will be a double here, because this for sure will not necessarily be an even number, because that is going to be 5 milliliters of formula for every 100 grams the kitten weighs. And if they weigh 107 grams, we're not going to get an even number here. So we're going to have some decimal places. And notice here, this is the daily feeding here. What we need to output is the weekly output here. Okay, so the daily formula needed per day, really, and this is going to be their average weight in grams divided by 100. And now, if I do 0.0 here, this is a double to avoid the integer division. Right? If this was already a double, if weight in grams was a double, I wouldn't need to say 100.0, but that's okay. And then that's times 5 milliliters here, times the number of kittens, times, actually no, that's the whole week then, right? Or that's the formula per day, right? 5 milliliters for every 100 grams they are, times the number of kittens we have. Then, if I want to know the weekly formula, I can either do another variable here, formula needed per week, which is just my formula needed per day times 7. Sure, I think that's pretty distinctive here, and that should work out pretty well. Now, some of these values here are numbers without names, and that gets a little funky, and it might do better to give us some of those constant variables, but this is probably okay for now here. It might be nice to have some sort of constant variable. I'm not too worried about it right now, and this is relatively straightforward, but you know, again, we can make it work out. So then how much you need per week then? You need to buy, then we can concatenate in here. Probably actually don't need the colon there, right? So formula per week, formula for the week. And that's really what, mLs? So again, using the units here is very nice because this is milliliters of formula here, milliliters of formula here. Okay, so that's if their age is less than 4. If it's not less than 4, I know it has to be 5 or more. So I can say else if, then the age in weeks. Now the next one goes up through 8. So if it's less than or equal to 8 here, the only time this will be true is if it's not less than or equal to 4, but it is less than or equal to 8. So right away I have my range. So some people were talking about, well, you could say if it's greater than or equal to 5 and less than or equal to 8. Sure, but it will never get here if it's not already at least 5. So it's kind of a redundant check there. All right, now for this one, we needed fixed 20 milliliters of formula plus 10 grams of wet food for every 100 grams the kittens weigh. Okay, so the amount of wet food here then is going to be 10 grams of wet food for every 100 grams the kitten is. So this isn't formula. I guess we can here. Let's keep this here. I'm just going to copy paste and feel a little bad here. But now there's no formula. It's just 20 milliliters, right? Always 20 milliliters of formula times the number of kittens I have, no matter how much they weigh. Then, so I still have the week amount. So then I need to figure out how much wet food we need to buy, right? So then the wet food here, so this is grams of wet food per day, is going to be 10 grams of wet food for every 100 grams the kitten weighs. So their average weight in grams divided by 100 times 10 here times the number of kittens will be grams of wet food per day. And again, then we can do double grams of wet food per week. Now again, you could have done this on one line, just added in a times 7. I kind of like having the variable here, so you can see like, okay, you went from day, and then you multiply it by 7 to get to the week. Again, it doesn't hurt anything. It's just another way of doing that here. And we'll take that number times 7. Okay, and then we'll tell them how much wet food they need to buy. By grams of wet food. And again, I'm doing double clicks here. Double clicks will highlight the entire word. And if we've done our variable naming, right, where it's a nice long variable name, you don't need to like click and drag, you don't need to arrow, any of that. Just double click and it'll highlight all of it. And then I'm going to Control V for paste. So it's grams of wet food. Wet food for the week. Okay? And now if they're not less than or equal to 4 and they're not less than or equal to 8, well, you could have another if case here, or you could just say else, right? If it's not one of the other ones, the other cases, they have to be at least 9 or more. I don't really need to say else if age in weeks is greater than or equal to 9. I can just say what it is. So it's just 100 grams of wet food a day. Okay, so the grams of wet food per day then is 100 grams, regardless of how much they weigh, times the number of kittens. Right? And then I can just copy this line as well for my output line. And, oops, sorry, we need the week as well. Copy the week in here. Okay? So there's no formula, just wet food here for kittens. And we can give it a try. Right, so let's give it a run. Go up here and find the little play button here. We'll hit run. And we'll give it a couple different values here and see if it gives you what we expect, right? So we say, okay, Eric is my name. How many kittens we have? I have 3 kittens. How old are the kittens? They are currently, well, let's do the first category. So let's say they are 3 weeks old here. And their average weight, let's just do something easy and say like 150. So if they're 150 grams here, and they need 5 milliliters per number of kittens. That should be, right, 150 is 1.5, right? So that'd be 7.5 times 3, 7.5 times 3. All right, I didn't pick the best number for that. 7.5 and 7.5 is 15. And then 15 plus 7.5, what's that, 22.5? So then 22.5 times 7, oh goodness, let me just grab the calculator here. 22.5 times 7 should tell us 157.7. Right, 157.5, I think I said that wrong, milliliters of formula for the week. Awesome, that seemed to work out pretty well. Let's try it again. So let's say, okay, name is Eric. How many kittens? I have 3 kittens. They are currently 8 weeks old, so that should be less than or equal to 8. Great. Their average weight, now they're probably about 250 grams or so. Again, I'm totally making this up. So fixed 20 times number of cats is 60 per day per cat. I'm sorry, no, 20 per cat. So 60 per day, 60 times 7, 420 milliliters of formula. Great. And then grams of wet food here. And if they're 250 divided by 100, 2.5, 2.5 times 10 is 25, 25 times the number of kittens, 75, 75 times 7, 75 times 7, 525 grams of wet food for the week. Right? Formula seems to be working out so far. Now let's run it again and say they're 10 weeks old. So Eric, I have 3 kittens, they are 10 weeks old. Average weight really doesn't matter here, so I can give it a really big number. And it's the same 100 grams per cat per day. Right? Oh, my spacing's off here a little bit. I should have had some spaces in here. Make that be a little prettier. There we go, because mLs should touch, but grams shouldn't. So that's 3 times 100, right? 300 times 7, 2100. Seems like it's giving me the numbers that I expect here. Right? So I think we're in pretty good shape. And here is my solution. Let's give it a quick check here then. Did we ask the user for the name and use it in all other prompts? Eric, enter this. Eric, enter this. Eric, enter this. I didn't say, Eric, you'll need to buy. I guess that's not a prompt, so I think we'll be okay here, right? Because I just said use it in all the following prompts. Okay, that's fine. If you use it, even better. That's okay. So I think we're all right there. And then did we ask for how many kittens, how old they are, and their average weight in grams? We sure did. And then we calculated, we checked each of those 3 sections here, so I'm feeling good. I would give myself an assessment, you know, item number 1, 2 points, item number 2, 2 points, item number 3, 2 points, item number 4, 2 points, item number 5, 2 points. 10 out of 10, feeling good about this one. All right, folks, you take care, and I'll see you in the next video.